This was one of the better episodes this season, I am not gonna lie. Normally acting challenges are a little cringy to me. I don't typically like the writing or the reference points. This was so good. There's quite a bit to break down on the TV side. Let's get into this. But before we do, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. We are getting so close to my subscriber goal. I think we're less than like 70. So hit that button if you are a returning viewer. I'm rolling up the sleeves for this one. We are talking about Drag Race Season 17, Episode 11. 11, Jesus. I had to double check my notes, I couldn't believe it. This is Ross Matthews and the Ducks. That's another thing. Not only do I not really like acting challenges, but I am not like Ross Matthews' #1 fan. I love that there are people out there who wear the Ross Matthews t-shirt and wave his little Hi Sister flag, something that says, in quotations, I'm a top. He just doesn't do it for me. But he genuinely, I think, stepped up his game. I think he gave good critiques. I think he gave good direction. He was really present in the episode. It didn't feel like he was trying to manufacture something. And that's normally my problem with him, is it feels like he's always just a little bit canned, a little bit, I'm following the script a little too stiffly. We start out with Arietti's kind of nasty, extremely nasty mirror message. I think Bombay said it best on TikTok, is that I'm shocked that nobody stopped her. That there wasn't a producer that was like, hey babe, are you sure that this is what you want your last impression to be? Are you sure that you want to say this? Because this is the last thing people will remember you by, especially here. So maybe wipe that off and start over again. And I'm not a huge fan of bringing outside of TV stuff into the workroom. I think it's messy. I think it's nasty. I think it's catty. It's typical drag queen BS stuff that I used to see in the nightclubs all the time, which is a lot of the reason why I don't like going to nightclubs and performing anymore. Because people are catty towards each other and bring up stuff that doesn't matter and has nothing to do with the competitive or performing aspect of the job. And that's all this teeth brushing comment was about, especially since Anya confided in all of them that she needed to see a dentist but just hasn't had time to do so. And so I thought it was just messy and gross. And I've defended a lot of these girls through the entire season of some of the things they've done, some of the things they've said, and tried to rally for them that maybe we're not seeing the whole picture. But this is one of those very clearly that was just nasty behavior. And in times where I've been even the most upset about getting eliminated from a drag competition, if I said something, it was usually in the direction of like the judges or the hosts, not a fellow competitor, because I just don't think that's productive. So this made me honestly lose a lot of respect for the hard work that Arietti put into this season by coming up with a good package and trying really hard to present a very specific aesthetic and personality. I feel bad for Anya, but to be honest, I feel like this was such a strong storyline moment. This bolsters her underdog position, and I've been talking a lot over weeks that Anya, in my opinion, is getting the underdog edit, to the point where I didn't think that she was going to win this one, because producers have convinced me as a viewer that they don't see her as a threat. They don't see her as someone who is a front runner in the competition. That is Susie and Lexi. And I was sure that she was getting a very different kind of edit this episode. So I was surprised that she won. Happy, but I think this particular moment bolstered that win for her, and I think it's bolstering her underdog thing, because now she's got a true agitator and a villain behind her, and that's Arietti. So that makes us as an audience want to root for her more, that she succeeds. So all of these people that have sort of been maybe anti-Anya up until now might fully be behind her, because now there's a level of sympathy that they'll have developing towards her, like, oh look, she's getting picked on and that wasn't fair. And so this, I think, while being a terrible moment, it at the time I think is going to help her trajectory on the show, and I think off of it as well with viewers of the show. And Lexi reveals further of this Susie versus her that's all up in her head. It's very Bob Thorgy. And I do not think yet that Lexi is a Jan. I don't think she is. I think Lexi is like a rosé. Lexi is getting a lot of passes for things that she should be getting penalized on. And the thing about the Rosé and the Jan archetypes is that they kind of get picked on and bullied by production / Rue. But Rosé is her outer saboteur. She's the one picking on herself. She's got the same elements of a Jan, the saltiness, the overconfidence, the theater kid of it all, is safe quite a bit, but instead of getting punished for doing badly like how Jans are, Rosés are kind of just praised for the same thing that Jans would have been penalized on. I feel like Lexi's falling into that category, but we'll see as the next episode or two fleshes out, because this moment was very, very Bob Thorgy, and Thorgy is Violin Jan. She reveals that Susie's been chasing her in her nightmares, and this has just been standard. And in my opinion, this is very much coming across like Lexi sees something in Susie that she wants to have herself, and she doesn't. So Susie's this sort of physical manifestation of all of this darkness that's inside of her that doesn't have a face, but is now personified in someone who is good at all the things that she is not at, and has the confidence to keep going even when she's not doing well. Where Lexi gets in her head, and as soon as she stops doing good, it shows here. And Susie is genuinely entrenched in that performer aspect of the show's going. We're not stopping or breaking for anything. And I think Lexi wants to have that. Lexi got kind of a frustrating edit for me as a viewer. I'm not particularly a fan of the production into something matters until it doesn't. This happens often where during the recording of something, if someone's struggling, doesn't get their lines right, if someone's having a hard time on set, they will get penalized and put in the bottom, even if the final product was good. But then we'll get contestants like Kylie Sonique Love in All Stars 6, who struggled really hard with that AHS challenge, to the point where Michelle had to get up and tell her how to do her line. But Kylie was praised for overcoming the bad quality of production that went into it and ended up getting the win. And then we look at characters like Trinity K. Bonet or Adore, who were difficult to work with on set, right? And then ended up in a low placement or are penalized for how bad they did. I think about these moments, and Lexi, again, had a very difficult time in the challenge, but got praised for how the final product was. So I always hate this inconsistency of the production matters until it doesn't. And Susie's storyline is also interesting this week because she is relinquishing control over yet another character. And the only time that Susie's really fought for a character and wanted something was in RDR Live. Every other time so far, Susie's sort of been hands off the wheel. If someone else wants it, she won't fight too hard. And this is exactly opposed to the edit that they're trying to make stick with her, which is this sort of villainous role that she's getting, where she's working up the room by making them not want her having things. She's agitating people with some of her commentary, making snide comments in Untucked like we saw a couple weeks ago. We're seeing her get feisty, right? And this edit that they're giving us is that Susie is confident. And they put this music underneath her and they do these cuts of her that make her seem like she's being harsh. We get Lexi telling us that Susie's chasing her in her nightmares. So that gives us this impression that Susie is an instigator on some level. That's what the edit is trying to tell us as an audience. But then we get these moments where she says, okay, I'm not gonna fight for it. I don't care. And she lets go. She's actively combating against the edit that they're giving her in real time, not knowing that that's what she's doing. And in post, they're telling us she's the one in the workroom causing problems. So that's so interesting because I'm looking at all of these facts and I'm like, Susie is not trying to be the villain. Susie is not trying to be an agitator or an instigator, but the edit is trying to tell us that she is. And this challenge, this acting challenge, is that top 8 / top 6 frenemies challenge that we've seen for an actual decade now. And I reference frenemies from season 4 because that was the perfect example of something like this, where this time period in the show is kind of the moment where the storylines start to flesh out, where our characters go head to head with each other. You got people like Willem and Latrice, who had a lot of storyline as people who were doing good in the competition and were being very loved by the judges, but that love could have sunk to the ground had they not worked together well, or it could have propelled them to the win. Same with Jeremy and Redacted Noodles. Whereas Chad and Dita were not really on the radar. Then we scroll forward to moments where Kennedy and Pearl get together, these two characters on the show who are clashing all season and finally see eye to eye. Going forward to Bob and Derek. Scrolling forward even more, where people like Rose and Tina got paired together. These are these storyline moments that the editors wait for so that they can get them into a group, force them to go head to head, and either they will resolve their issue, see eye to eye, or they'll crash and burn and explode. So this was an interesting stray from form because that typically happens when there's enough for duos. Part of me wishes that this had been swapped with last week so that Arietti could have been here with maybe Jules and seen that friendship bomb happen, since they seemed to have a lot of tension last week, just even before the deliberation of who got what role. So that would have been interesting to see play out, and then this week could have been Villains Roast. But I'm also not terribly mad that we got a little break from the typical rubric of the 4/3 groups together to head them and see who comes out victorious. On top of the fact that this was also another break from form because they were judged individually, where normally they're judged as a group. Our groups are Lexi and Susie, who they've started building up this tension a couple of episodes ago, where Lexi sees Susie as this big competition. They have some tension, and this is all coming to a head now. So are they going to overcome that? We have Sam and Lydia, who have been kind of at each other's throats, not liking each other's drag or vibing with each other really since day one. And then they've just not liked each other's drag and have constantly critiqued each other. But it hasn't been all out explosions in the workroom. It's just been little disagreements, little pointing and oops, sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. And I've been noting these things, but I didn't think it was going anywhere. This seemed like a lackluster storyline. To me, this was kind of comparable to what happened with like Chi-Chi and Thorgy, where Chi-Chi was just not having a problem with Thorgy at all, but was just getting kind of activated about how Thorgy was always nitpicking her and everybody else. Thorgy was just bothered by Chi-Chi's work ethic, but they weren't at each other's throats or anything. They weren't fighting, they just were bickering every now and again, but it wasn't big. Not in the same way that people like Bob and Derek were. So this was kind of a watered down fight, but I mean, the editors tried their hardest to make us feel like this was a big deal from all the way back in week 1. And then our last group is Anya and Lana. And to me, this was kind of the very obvious Chad Dita group, the ones who are not really on production's radar. They probably were meant to slide on through this episode and just not be seen. And yet, this was the group that surprised me the most because I truly thought and was gaslit that Anya was not on production radar. I'm always rooting for her to win, but I've just been convinced that they don't care about her. And Lana, I sort of feel is like a tool that they're going to use when they need to knock somebody out. And that's what they did, but I was surprised that it was this week. I was sure that it would be Jules because she was solo, and that solo role, that quasi-MC, the Roxy Andrews in the Comedy Challenge of All-Stars 2 role, that one is designed to fail, to flub, to not do good. And the problem with incorporating the New York Big Brother monologue is that that monologue is so funny and bombastic and vivacious because she's sitting back like this in a gross tank top, hair a mess, and saying she doesn't have the vernacular to be that type of woman. She thinks that she's glamorous and she is nothing of the sort. It's delivered with such apathy and deadness behind the eyes that the read comes off more genuine. The iconicness of the monologue, it lies within that ambivalence towards even having to talk about her. That the fact that she must speak about Gemma is so tedious to her that reading her is easy. Telling the whole world that she thinks that Gemma is ugly and unqualified to wear certain pairs of shoes is funnier because of her unbotheredness talking about her, in her blaseness to just rapid fire insults in her direction. So using that monologue and bringing it to big and trying to pump it up like Ross Matthews is unqualified XYZ, that dialogue needs to also be pumped up in a way that differentiates it from the source material and increases the volume so that the monologue is actually funny. Rapid fire insults work when you either are doing it at base level, unbothered zero like Tiffany does, Or when she's at a 10, these moments where she's being bombastic, the dialogue needs to be bumped up too. And I don't think that the role was designed to do well. So I really thought that this was Jules' week to be in the bottom as well. And last week I predicted that it would be Lydia going home, and I was correct. She's completely run out of story. She got the one thing she needed. She doesn't have Corey here to propel her to another week. And the thing with a showmance is that when TV latches on to you having a showmance, you don't have anywhere else to go. Contestants like Brooke kind of lucked out in the showmance that happened midway through because their early storyline was that they were a front runner, that they were the competition in the room, and they were sort of the mother figure while all of these other players like Evie and Silky were just clashing. Vanjie were clashing. So her having a storyline with Vanjie didn't negatively affect her in the same way as it did to Vanjie, because Vanjie was hinged on the storyline of the romance, right? Where Lydia doesn't have a storyline outside of Corey because she's really not giving much to TV. And I'm gonna say that Lana and Anya circumvented all of my expectations for them because they were hysterical. Anya was so fun to watch in a way that I have not seen someone be that charismatically bombastic in years. Since easily Bob's season. I think Bob has that natural ability to walk into a room and just take ownership of it. And Lana, in my opinion, kept up. I never felt like she got steamrolled by Anya. And that critique really bothered me because it felt like they were just needing somebody to be in the bottom, so they were grasping at straws. And then our runway category is black and white ball. We haven't had a black and white category since season 6, so this made me excited to see this combo again. And as always, I will be ranking them from my number 1 to my number 7. Let me know what your ordering was, and remember that these are my choices. Doesn't have any bearing on reality. Sam is the very first one out. I love this Marie Antoinette gesture. I think the mix of patterns is so freaking cool. I love the checkboard print with the stripes, with this matte white. Then there's this like upholstery fabric that's on the sleeve. I think the ruffle detail is so cool. All the work that's been done with that piping. This is so cool. Was it Sam back when Susie did that Harlequin clown? Was it Sam who was critiquing her really hard about how it wasn't couture? Because I think I understand now why she said that. Because her coming out in this, she had the audacity. She had the gall, the gumption, and the nerve, and she committed to the makeup. That is, I think, one of the most impressive things, is that she was not afraid to go a little wild with the look. This, to me, was very much in the same school of Trinity back in season 9, where she came out in that club kid look and did that intense, crazy makeup. Same concept to me. She really studied at that school of Trinity the Tuck, and she came ready to do the drag race thing. This hair also looks like one of Trinity's. It could be, because I think Sam wore another one of her wigs this season. I love this look. She actually turned me out, and throughout the weeks, I haven't always been like the biggest fan of Sam's looks, but this one was great to me, so I stuck it in number 2. Next out is Lana Jarre in a very simple, clean dress. And I love simple and clean, that Utare Hikaru song, but I don't know if I like this simple and clean look. And our girl is so back, because this week she said this is something that she doesn't normally do. And that's my favorite thing to wait for every single week, is what does Lana not do? She doesn't cover herself up. She doesn't wear wigs. I don't normally wear shoes like this. I don't normally wear pants. I don't normally wear dresses. I don't normally style my hair. I don't normally put on makeup. If you don't do any of these things, what do you do? We are so back. I was not a big fan of this matte shirt. The high neckline, so Marie Antoinette. I think the white polka dot bodysuit underneath is quite interesting, and I like the bow. I think the hair is cool. I think the train is cool. I think if maybe the bodice had been maybe black, that could have been a little more graphic and eye-catching. It needed a little juxtaposition. Plus, the black panty underneath this is really catching my eye in a way that I'm not loving. What kind of decision was that? It looks beautiful, but I mean, it wasn't that impressive. It wasn't groundbreaking. It didn't make me gag. I think the shoes are probably the best part of this entire outfit, right next to the polka dot bodysuit. I put it at number 5 because I don't hate it, but I didn't live either. Anya came out next, and I've got to be honest, I've got to be real, I've got to spill my tea, which is my truth. I have not loved Anya's package all season. There have been a few looks here and there that have been like, ooh, cool. And there have been others where I'm like, ooh, okay, I see you, budget. And that's okay. I think that when Anya comes back for All Winners 2 or 3, she is gonna have the biggest glow up of any winner of all time. I'm already calling her winning this season. I think that this episode solidified it for me that she's gonna be the underdog winner. You know, that's just my opinion. I think this dress looks like it came straight out of Lydia's closet. Like someone knew how to sew but didn't know how to design or construct. The dress is heavy looking. The body is kind of missing. There's no bust, there's no waist, there's no real visible hip because there's just so much of this shiny sequiny fabric. And then this like taffeta that is over it. I don't know if that's what it is, but that's what it looks like to me. I'm not responding positively to that. I think it is kind of weird looking, and then this like plush swan on the head is so dead. I was certain that Anya was not gonna win because of this look. The dress is not my favorite. I think it's kind of boot nasty, and I've talked about it too long. I think Anya's great. I put it at number 7. Lydia came out next in what I'm already gonna tell y'all is my number 1. And there have been a lot of Lydia's looks that I have not responded to because a lot of Lydia's looks wear her. She's not wearing them, but this was so classy. It was so like legacy millionaire woman going out to a gala. I could see so many celebrities in this. The long sleeves was very fashionable. I love these tails that are coming off on the sides all the way around this like half poncho. This upside down triangle fabric is very appealing to my eyes. This zebra blanket that she deconstructed to incorporate in this, the way that it's separated in these 3 parts and then is ruched and bunched so that it creates this visual swirl effect on the mermaid skirt. It's so cool. And the makeup and the hair, oh my God, she looks so good. This is the first look all season that I've been like, yes, 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 yes. She's had some looks that have gotten close that I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing. I see you getting closer and closer to giving your aesthetic. This is the one that I think shows it the best. It's clean, it's edited, it's concise, it has a great POV, plus she incorporates hardware into it, which I've noticed she incorporates a lot of hardware into her garments. There's this chain that's on the side. She just looks like a spectacle, and I'm obsessed. This easily is gonna be top 10 looks of the entire season for me. Number 1, again, that's it for me, mama. That's a wrap. What a great look to go home on. Except she butchered it. We'll talk about that in a second. Susie came out next doing an Egyptian cat fringe, very Marie Antoinette coded. I think the makeup is the most impressive part of it. It's clean. And that's what a lot of these looks have given me, is just clean silhouettes. I love the velvet of the shoulders all the way up to the headpiece. I think that is such a nice breakup of all the color. I'm a sucker for fringe, and I think the movement of this is the best part of it. You can see each individual layer of the fringe, and you can see how much work went into this to make sure that the lines were clean and crisp. I disagree with the critiques. I think she was told she didn't have much of a silhouette. This type of column dress isn't meant to have much of a silhouette. You're supposed to enjoy the movement of the fringe. I think Susie easily could have won this week, but Anya had a better storyline. Susie is in the number 3 spot for me. Next out we have Lexi, and the top half is bridal. Marie Antoinette loved to wear veils, so I see her in this as well. And the bottom half is like corner girl. I don't really love the sandals. I think that is pretty egregious, but I do like that there is black and white on it. I just think they're ugly shoes. I'm not a huge fan of the texture that is on the panty. I think the corset with this sheer fabric is nice. I like the ombre on it. I think it's just a little too simple. And the idea is black and white ball. So I'm thinking masquerade, a ball, a gala, somewhere luxe. And this to me doesn't read luxurious, it reads hoochie prom. And I think because of the headpiece with this drapey fabric that is giving bridal to me. And I think that kind of takes it out of the idea of a ball. I love Lexi, but I didn't love this. It was my number 6. And then last out is Jules. Oh my God. This executive editorial fashion look was one of the coolest pieces that she's had. And I love the humor of this cat bag. Love that cat bag. I love the cat ears. I love the hair. I love the incorporation of like menswear using the neck and the tie. I love the open shirt with the bra exposed. There's a lot of great painting detail that's done all the way through this, but then she's also got a cat tail. So there's an extra layer of humor. This little kitty cat who's just in business realness and is gonna go out to slay the executive world and sell everyone 25 pounds of cat litter at an MLM rate and try and distribute this cat litter from her garage. I think it's got a really excellent point of view. I think it is her brand down. There's something that is very editorial and scaled back about Jules' drag, while also having an element of surprise. And I think we've seen that every single week. But it's also kind of hodgepodgey, as we saw last week with her Marie Antoinette look, is that it's got references from all over the place. It's got these inspos pulled from it. And, you know, I see the Marie Antoinette here too. So then they showed us the final performances, and I gotta say again, Anya and Lana chewed up every inch of that set. They devoured so hard, kept up with each other's energy, were great to watch. In my opinion, Sam was kind of hard to watch. I didn't feel like she was connecting with the lines at all. She was just saying them. Lydia felt connected to the physical comedy more than the lines. So to me, I don't think either one of them worked together very well, and there was totally adequate reason to put them both in the bottom. I felt like Susie's line delivery was the funniest of the night next to Anya, in a very different way. Anya has this commanding presence when she walks in a room. To make another rough comparison, going all the way back to the challenge in season 8, where Bob came in and just had this presence that ate up the scenery, but then Thorgy came in and had the character down and sold it really well. It was that same energy to me. It was very Bob Thorgy. This character is doing so good and improvising on their own, adding their own luster and sparkle to it, where Susie just connected with the lines in a very different way. And during critiques, Ross said that Lydia had some of the funniest lines in the entire group, and I completely disagree. I don't think they were some of the funniest lines. I think the prostate wants what it wants is a funny line, but I wouldn't go like, ha ha ha, at that. In my opinion, I think that Sam had some of the best lines and didn't connect with them at all. She had the Whitney Houston monologue from It's Not Right, But It's Okay. And it was just, it's not right, but it's okay. There's so much to pull from that from. Why is it that when Jules is trying to connect with New York, that matters, and that she didn't do it right? But then when Sam is supposed to be connecting to Whitney but did it not well, that doesn't matter. These opposing judging things that they leave into the edit for us to see just creates frustration because it shows inconsistency from the viewer side. And then Rue asked the classic question, who should go home tonight? And I want to know the Mickey Mouse bullshit that was going on in this room, because nobody said who should have legitimately gone home. They have all been so congenial this season and trying very hard to not make anybody upset too hard. And the kumbaya is in full effect because they all said Susie, who is such a cop-out response. Just say whoever the weak link is in the group. Lana and Lydia are the objective 2 weakest in the group, and Lexi has been getting in her own way and forcing herself to not succeed throughout much of the competition. They are the 3 clear next ones to go. And I don't understand why you would even say someone who is clearly knocking out the challenges. But my favorite part was at the end of deliberation, Rue saying, well, I guess I know what we gotta do. Gotta eliminate Susie Toot. Even her understanding that this whole who should go home and why was BS. She was waiting for her Lux moment. She was waiting for like Sam to rip in and go, well, I just want to say about Jules is that she is so artistic and professional. And I just want to say that I think that Lydia is such a charming person, but I think her drag is not very good. I think it's quite mediocre. Kind of like how I feel about Lana's personality is that it's just so mediocre. So I would say either one or both of them should go home. Like, I think she was waiting for that and it didn't happen. Susie said Lana for track record purposes, and I'm glad that she was at least real. Not really a lot happened in Untucked, but I did write that Sam called Lydia's drag charming. And that felt like peak Southern Shade to me. The winner of the challenge is Anya, which I was so happy about, gagged even. Very glad that she got another win because I think that she easily could have won a couple other challenges by now and probably should have. And our bottom two is Lana and Lydia to Sam Smith's Unholy, featuring Kim Petras. I'm gonna write a memoir from my time doing drag, my like 5.5 years of doing drag. And I'm gonna write a whole guide, a how-to book for the quirky girls who don't fit in, with a foreword of capturing camp, glamour, silliness, and stupidness all in one. And chapter 2 is gonna be called Don't Cut Up Your Dress. As soon as I see scissors come out, I am like, no, do not cut up your dress ever. Ever. It was so bad to watch. This was a circle of hell of cringe that is like ultimate for me. Watching someone tediously cut up their dress, and from an awkward point too. Like if you're gonna cut up your garment, which you should never do, you start at the base. You don't start at a random point in the middle. You start literally at the base of it, where you are going to get the most amount of cut for your buck. You cut upwards and then you rip. I tried one time to do scissors and my scissor gag failed. I was cutting up like a ribbon or something, but it would not cut. So I was like standing on stage snipping. So I just threw the scissors and just held the prop that the ribbon was cut to and just didn't deal with it anymore. Scissors are never going to work out on stage the way you think they are. I think the only time it worked out was for Ginger Minj and Sasha Bell, who gave themselves a, not a mammogram, when they cut off the titties, because Jaden and Tempest were doing so bad. If Jaden and Tempest turned it out just a smidge, like if they had just turned up the camp just like a little bit, I think maybe Jaden could have won that one because it was so awkward watching Ginger dance around in that wig topless with glue all over her titties. Like I think We're Alone Now was funny for Ginger and I think she is a good lip syncer, but that is always awkward. There have been other girls who have tried to cut up their gowns and it never works the way that you want it to. If you're gonna take out scissors, use it to cut your hair. There was a girl I think in Mexico who did that, who cut up her hair on stage, and that was sickening. Do not cut up your dress on RuPaul's Drag Race on the main stage when you're lip syncing. Because her wiggling at the beginning of the song was quite funny. I think the way that she was scooting around the runway was interesting. It had Ru's attention. And Lana wasn't doing anything. She had zero competition. This to me would have been if Latrice during the You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman lip sync like took out the baby bump and like patted her face with it for some reason when Kenya was spinning around inappropriately to that song and took off her wig and then went barefoot like a gremlin out in the middle of the forest. Latrice had no competition. She could have done just that, park and barked. And Lydia honestly could have just scooted around that runway back and forth for 2.5 minutes. Just doot, 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 doot. And Ru would have ate it up and she would have survived another week, but her cutting that dress is what sent her home. And then the payout wasn't even worth what we got because all she did was get on the floor and wiggle around some more. Like she could have done that while standing. Lana beating Lydia to a lip sync was not on my bingo card, but hey, I think it was very deserved. She didn't tear up her garment live on stage, which you also never want to do. That's so un-C-U-N-T-Y. It's so un-C-U-N-T-Y. Ru saying, I'll always have a soft spot for you, makes a lot of sense why the rumors are that Lydia immediately got cast for All Stars 10, because it's very clear that Ru loves her. I think if Ivy Winters was more invested in drag, Ivy would be the Jujubee of the Drag Race franchise. Ivy would have been in All Stars 2, in All Stars 3, in All Stars 6, and probably in All Stars 8. Let's be so real. And probably Versus the World too. I think that Lydia is going to be our new Jujubee. Lydia is going to appear in All Stars 10. UK Versus the World 4 is going to show up in Global All Stars and is probably going to show up in some type of revival of Drag U. Maybe even Secret Celebrity Drag Race. Mark my words, this girl is going to get the call for everything. Because Juju's not interested in competing in drag anymore, so they need someone to fulfill that role. And next up is the Charisma, Uniqueness, Nerve, and Talent monologues, which were pulled from All Star 6, but it has dancing. So I don't know if I love that, because the top 6 dance challenge is always so uncomfortable. Is it an interpretive dance? Because I don't think that's necessary. And then I'm guessing that means we're gonna get a top 5 makeover episode, which is going to be fascinating to see. But what did y'all think about this episode? Let me know in the comments below. Once again, I talked for way too long, but I will see y'all next week with another one. And remember, make sure to subscribe, and I will see y'all on the flip.